Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Headache Week. I'm your host, the Headache Runner. Here we're gonna talk about all kinds of headaches today. We've got basic headaches. There's like pressure headaches, allergen headaches. What else we got? There's really bad headaches, needle headaches, cluster headaches. The cluster headaches are really bad. And then there's actual migraines, which are like the worst. Thankfully, I haven't actually had a migraine in a long time. Migraines are bad. What's up, guys? Yeah, I feel like crap today. I am still fighting off a headache that I had last night. And, and feeling sick regardless, in addition to having a headache. I have spent a lot of this morning in the bathroom. I know you wanted to hear that. That's why I'm here. I'm here to tell you stuff like that. Things you want to know on a show that is primarily concerned with things like gaming and geek culture and all that fun kind of stuff. Nothing has changed whatsoever on my audio setup. Mic is still at max. I just double checked and I'm triple checking. There's the fourth check. So yeah, I have no idea. Am I quiet to anyone else? Shouldn't be. You probably can't even hear the music right now. Just gonna take a couple of vitamins here that I should have taken before I hit record, but I've always got a couple of minutes at the beginning of Loreweek. I figured taking vitamins, that's a thing, right? Cluster headaches are the worst, in my opinion. I mean, that's not true. Migraines are the worst, but cluster headaches are really, really bad because when you get a cluster headache, it hurts to lay down. That's actually one of the key features of a cluster headache, is it hurts to lay down. Yeah, those are fun. Anyways, so I do have a couple of news items for you today. Just a couple, really. Actually, we may end up talking for a while. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how long today's Loreweek goes on, because throughout the week I've had this continuous thought of, God, nothing's going on. There's nothing to talk about. I have nothing to discuss for Loreweek. It's ridiculous. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to take a couple notes down here. I'm just going to mention this during our preamble thing. Anybody out there ever play LA Noire or have any interest in it? I'm sorry, Dark Archon. If you want, I'll stop talking immediately. There. Okay, got everything written down. Thank you, Spirit of Memory. I think. So yeah, LA Noire is apparently coming out on the Switch. Yes, really. I don't even know what to make of that, honestly. I know that the stigma of Nintendo being for kids is wrong and actively false. No, will be. Future tense, Corrales. So, the idea of an extremely adult game coming out on the Switch doesn't really surprise me all that much. But what I don't understand is, of all of Rockstar's properties, why that one? Like, why LA Noire? Why not, I don't know, Red Dead Redemption? And you think I'm kidding. For those of you not aware, Red Dead Redemption has not come out outside of PS3 ever, to my knowledge. Maybe it was on the Xbox as well, I don't know. But it definitely wasn't on the PC, and it hasn't come out on anything else. I gotta be blunt, if they came out with RDR on the Switch, I'd buy it. When I say extremely mature, this is a game about being a detective involved in very realistic crimes. That's what I mean by extremely mature. I don't like LA Noire. For me, that crosses some lines. It is, in my own words, too realistic. Not too believable. I love believability in fiction. But LA Noire is basically just a video game set in real life detective story and is just as horrible as that would actually be in real life. It is very gory, very brutal, and involves some very unpleasant ideas. Like when you actually get onto the homicide unit, it's bad. So I actually do praise LA Noire. I do think there's some things that the game has done quite well and quite good. But I even own the game, actually, but I will never play it again. Yeah. Anyways, that's true, Lurker. And that would just, nobody wants Red Dead Redemption. Nobody liked Red Dead Redemption, right? Like, nobody liked that game, right? Right? That's why they're making a sequel. And forgive me if I'm all sniffly and weird. Like I said, I'm sick right now. So... yeah, why would anyone want to play Red Dead Redemption? That's just ridiculous. I've decided I'm going to start off with something light, okay? Now, I'm already a little bit into this game. Yeah, that's great. I'm already a little bit into this game. I'm going to stream a game for you that came across my attention because I was looking up something about Matthew Groening. No. It's great. Is this it? Yep, okay. Give me a second. Actually, no. Really? We gotta do this? Okay, fine. There we go. You should hear it now. Although you can't see it. Oh, there it is. No? Is it this one? Is it this one? Ah! What the hell? Why is this not working? I set this all up earlier. Hang on. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Now... I shouldn't have to explain what this is. So I'm not going to. Because I shouldn't have to. And if I do, then shame on you. However... what I don't really... where to start? So, anybody who knows me knows that I've been in some kind of ongoing quest to be proven wrong. To be proven wrong about mobile games. To date, I have not been. Mobile games have either been extremely low quality or simply not my thing, one of the two. But what's funny is anybody who knows anything about mobile games or Futurama will know this is actually the second, or I think third, actually, excuse me, Futurama game that's come out. This is the most recent one. This is, now, what caught my attention about this, and the only reason I grabbed it at all, because the last one was garbage, is the fact that this is written by the actual creators and development team of Futurama itself, that they brought them in for this, and that they're actually releasing, effectively, another episode of Futurama in parallel to this. That's coming out in the next few months, or I don't remember the exact time. So, woo! It's not going to be a new season or anything like that, it's just a new episode. But I was like, alright, fine, I'll look at your stupid tie-in. So... the gameplay for the most part is just tap things, wait for an action to complete, tap another thing. Not exactly interesting, right? But, so I've actually already played this game up to the point I'm at now, just because I was trying to figure out what the hell, because I was having trouble figuring out what the gameplay was of this game. Well, this is the gameplay of this game. This is the actual gameplay. Everything before was just tap things and wait for things. So anyways. So we're gonna fly forward here. Up. We have a random encounter. Hang on, gotta use my special ability really quick. There we go. Random joke. Alright, what do you think? Up or down? Which path should we take? Yes, this is definitely more interactive than ATV. I said that there are some mobile games that just aren't my thing, Anthony. Oh, that's true. I don't have Bender. Unless I can get Bender there. I have no idea how that works. The bottom path does get me more orbs, which unlocks more building capacity, but... Of course, it's... Yeah, okay. Apparently I can only go up, because I don't have... So it requires Bender. It doesn't give you Bender. This game is tutorialized to crap, by the way. We're still actually in the tutorial. Yep, that's great. The plot, by the way, is that Hypnotoad met female Hypnotoad from another dimension, and their toad lust was so powerful it shattered the boundaries of reality. Hey, it's Lur, ruler of the planet Omicron Persei 8. I vowed the first person who asked me about it would be fleamed. But relax, you're the second person to ask. The first was my neighbor trying to stick his nose in my business. I fleamed him right off. Okay, so we'll send Fry, because I have to, because it's forced tutorialization. This is the artifact you seek? What's the artifact? It doesn't even say. But I need this to get Earth TV in high def. Okay. I mean, maybe we could do something else. Pay for cable instead of stealing hotel Wi-Fi. Do you know how long a cable we need to reach Earth? Leave me alone this artifact. I'm missing a previously on. I'm going to reveal spoilers, I think. I'll reveal a season ender for every minute you waste. That's it. I will slay you from my recliner. Okay, so that's an exploration encounter, I guess. I'll have... Okay, whatever. Some of this dialogue makes me laugh, and some of it doesn't. So I'm guessing... Yeah, okay. Okay. Are you gonna let me... You're still tutorializing. Unfortunately, I don't think I can show you the intro again, which is the only thing that's actually made me laugh so far. So, let's see. Okay, so we got an artifact, which is the main plot stuff. We got a career chip. So two generic career things. a career chip is experience. So we got experience for Fry, and we got experience for Professor Farnsworth, who wasn't even on this freaking mission. Wow. Hey, there's shop items that I should go buy. And I leveled. Leveling's good, right? Okay. I mean, I gotta be honest, I'm not what you'd call super impressed by this. The art style's certainly nice. And it's great that they're getting another episode. And the intro made me laugh. Wow. I got nothing, guys. Okay, give me something to do. So that goes to Mars. Bender wants beer. Those are the two quests I have. Also pizza. Which you can get from watching an ad, which I'm not doing on my stream. Whatever. I'll keep plugging at it, maybe, in my immense amount of spare time I have. But I just wanted to show it off live and give a live reaction to it. Because I was curious how it was. Whatever. Moving on. Wow, I have like no viewers. Usually Loreweek has a bunch of people. I've noticed I'm getting fewer and fewer viewers lately with Twitch. Is it me? I'm asking sincerely. Am I just getting boring lately? Let's talk about Star Wars. So Star Wars, God. Hang on. I need to just turn this off. There we go. Stop mirroring this to my frickin' TV or computer. So yeah, Star Wars. Who knows who Kathleen Kennedy is? Let me get my music. I need music. Help recover here. Kathleen Kennedy is someone who only really started coming into my circle of knowledge about a month or so ago. And the more I've learned, the more I've been like, wow, like, I have compared her to Rick Berman. That's actually not fair. She's nowhere near as bad as Rick Berman is, because I've learned recently how much worse Rick Berman was than I thought he was. That's not a joke, by the way. We will be talking about Rick Berman quite a bit when it comes to Deep Space Nine, especially. But anyways, I digress. Regardless, several people believe that Kathleen Kennedy is not a good thing for Star Wars. To put that as absolutely nicely as I can. The extent and the extremity of that is up to you and to the individuals. And of course, a lot of this is supposition or speculation. And we will probably not know the true story of exactly what's been going on with regards to certain decisions behind the scenes for several years, because that's how that usually works. But I bring up Kathleen Kennedy because there's another person I want to talk about, Colin Trevorrow. Anybody know who that is? This one, I imagine much fewer people know who that is specifically. Colin Trevorrow was the director of Jurassic World, the most recent Jurassic Park movie. He was also the director of Star Wars 9. He is no longer the director of Star Wars 9. That's the Berman I'm referring to, SJ, yes. That's the same one. Now, yeah, I don't agree with that extreme spirit of memory, but I do think she is personally responsible for a lot of crap going on with Star Wars right now. Anyways, this is just a weird situation for me. I just wanted to talk about this briefly. So, Colin Trevorrow, a lot of people are saying, oh my god, they got rid of this director on Star Wars and it's this terrible decision, blah, blah, blah. I don't actually like him as a director. When I first heard that Colin Trevorrow was being replaced, I was like, oh, thank God. That was pretty much my gut reaction. Whew. Okay, that's dodged. We're okay. We're okay. We're okay, guys. He's no longer the director of a Star Wars film. Now, I want to clarify that a little bit. His directing itself is very average, in my opinion. Nothing really bad, but nothing really to write home about either. But I find the man himself insufferable, and he has an attitude that I don't agree with. Let me put it to you this way. He's the kind of person who I'm going to use a voice to try and explain what I'm going with here, okay? Because I don't know how to explain this in words, all right? He's the kind of person who will insist that this is an autistic representation of real-world commercialism and the utilization of the autistic... You see, this is why I'm stuttering. I can't do this in words, so I have to use my tone to get across what I'm getting across. Every interview by this guy has come across as him just being a stuck-up, insufferable art person. And I put this in quotes because I've met real art people, and they're fine. I would argue I am one of those people myself. But this guy is just... sniff, snuff, you know. And every single one, 100% of the interviews I've read from this guy are just... In fact, anybody who remembers my discussion on Star Wars, or excuse me, in Jurassic Park World, may remember I actually was like, wow, this film has an interesting undercurrent theme going through it. And then I watched his interview about it and was like, oh, that's not what you were going for at all. You were an art snob. My bad. I don't know how many of you remember that, but that's a thing that actually happened. So, now we get to the interesting part, because I was happy that he left the project for Star Wars 9. People leaving Star Wars seems to be a recurring theme. And this is the other reason I relate Kathleen Kennedy to Rick Berman. Not as an insult. Okay, let's leave all that out the window. I mean, I hate Rick Berman, but I do not mean this as an insult. Okay, I don't mean this as an insult. I don't mean this as a poo-flinging. What I mean is that Rick Berman was in charge of Star Trek when Gene Roddenberry died. And Kathleen Kennedy is in charge of Star Wars now that Lucas has retired. Not quite the same situation, but I'm seeing the same kind of broad sweeping motions from both people. Anyone who remembers when TNG was pushing through season 4, I think? Or maybe it was season 5. When Roddenberry died, when Rick Berman took over TNG full time and started pushing forward Deep Space Nine, there was a lot of problems under the hood. A lot of backstage problems were happening that more or less directly led to Voyager having issues in its first season as a direct result of Rick Berman saying, well, I want to stay true to Gene's vision, to Gene Roddenberry, to Gene's vision. I have to stay true to that. And so he kind of just really locked in a lot on even more than Roddenberry himself had done. And it was arguably to Star Trek's detriment that he did that. Which brings me to Kathleen Kennedy. Now, this is still the realm of speculation and supposition. Remember, we don't actually know what's going on. But everything I keep hearing coming out of, the ranch, everything I keep hearing coming out of Lucasfilm and Star Wars in general, and on a broad sense, on a large-scale sense, most notably with the movies, by the way. This is only somewhat touched the extended AU stuff. But mostly with regards to the movies, it's been, well, this is what Lucas's vision was. No, we can't do that. This is Lucas's vision. No, we can't do this. This is Lucas's vision. No, get away. And that kind of a thing. And I feel she's having the same general reaction that Berman did, trying to preserve Lucas's vision, which some people may agree with and some people may disagree with. Again, I'm not casting any judgments at this point. I'm just stating what I believe is going on. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's up to you to decide. Now, the final note on this one is that Kathleen Kennedy has reportedly was very vocal in shoving Mr. Trevorrow out the door because she believed that he was so difficult to work with and was basically resistant to following Lucas's vision. I'm not sure what to make of that, to be completely honest with you. Because it's just a little bit too easy for me to dismiss someone's vision, probably because I'm a Star Trek fan. I actually have gotten a lot of flack from more Star Trek purists over the years, because I love Deep Space Nine. And Deep Space Nine was not true to Gene's vision. In fact, Deep Space Nine, in my blunt opinion, didn't start getting good until they basically said, all right, you're a failing show anyways, do whatever, we don't care. And they pushed the envelope. Not too far. You know, I do strongly believe there is such a thing as too far for Star Trek, and that's called Star Trek Discovery, which is actually our next topic. But I nevertheless think that I disagree with the idea of forcing you to do X when it comes to writing. Like, I understand the concept that being creatively limited encourages creative thinking. I totally get that, and that's been proven true a bajillion times. That's true, Django. That's a fair point there. But at the same time, I've always felt that there is a line that you shouldn't cross. I hate to keep referencing Star Trek, but there's a concept called the Roddenberry box, which is you can't go beyond this. You can't have interpersonal conflicts. You cannot have all that crap, right? Don't go beyond this. Don't do anything other than this. In fact, it's actually kind of astonishing that Rogue One was even made. Because Rogue One is actually fairly outside of the typical, for lack of a better term, Lucas box. And in fact, by all accounts, because for everything I've read, the only reason Rogue One was what it was because they just kind of let them do whatever. They're like, yeah. There's actually interviews with the writing and directing team of Rogue One who are like, well, we want to do X, and we know they're not going to let us do X, so we've written up a draft of X, and now we're trying to figure out how to make Y out of X. And then they went to Disney, or the upper executives, with X, and they said, yeah, do whatever. And by all accounts, they were like, wait, really? Okay. But you cannot deny that there's the main feature stigma that's part of this. Para exemple. Anybody out there know Kingdom Hearts? How many people out there have the, let's just say this as bluntly as we can, incorrect mentality that there is such a thing as main Kingdom Hearts games and Gaiden Kingdom Hearts games? Fingers crossed, Nothrazim. Good news is it looks like it's moving a little bit further into the Gulf. So. Yeah, the point here being that there is, of course, going to be this stigma, this idea that there are main Star Wars movies and that there are Gaiden Star Wars movies, and therefore the main movies matter more. Now, it's understandable why people have this reaction, but it also means this is actually getting into something that I've talked about, and this is literally related to another topic I've written down, so I may segue into that. At a certain point, expectations exist such that risk-taking is no longer acceptable. If you're making a big game, a AAA game with, you know, what is it, $47 million going into it. That's an actual number for an actual game that came out this year, last year. And if you've got that kind of money, you can't take risks, right? You have to play it safe. This is one of the reasons why some people say there's so much homogenization going on in the film industry, in Hollywoodization, over the past decade or so. It's because of the fact that the amount of money and effort that goes into making a movie is actually kind of insane when you really think about it. And it's worth noting that as artificial. I just keep branching topics out here. Let me cut off one of the earlier topics before I branch off of this anymore. Yeah, the Ubisoft sandbox, another good example. The point I'm trying to reach with this massive segue here is that it's my opinion that Rogue One was allowed to be the beautiful piece of work that it is, my opinion, because of the fact that it was a Gaiden movie, that it didn't matter as much. And Episode 8 and Episode 9 will be far more, for lack of a better term, safe and more true to Lucas's vision, and that basically that they're pulling the reins much harder on those films because they are main Star Wars films, and therefore the priority is higher, the focus is higher, you know, that kind of a thing. And I feel, getting all the way back to Colin Trevorrow, my original topic here, that this is the primary reason why he was kicked to the curb, because he was wanting to do X or Y. Whether it was good or bad, we don't know, and I don't even know what he was doing, but he wanted to do X and Y, and she was like, no! And one thing we do know that is a fact is she was demanding of him to do such and such. I don't know what those things were, but she was demanding such and such from his directorial performance, and he was being difficult, and now he's not working on the project anymore. These are facts that we have here. Everything else is kind of... And if I may go into my segue just a little bit more here, because I do want to mention this. Anybody out there know how messed up the diamond industry is? I mean, forgive me for really, really branching here, but I swear this is related. Because this is even related to my next topic. The diamond industry, for those of you not aware, I'll try to summarize. It's a mess. The diamond industry is... trying to think how best to summarize this. The basic idea here, yeah, diamond industry is evil. That's a great way to put it. I agree with that. But the best way I can summarize this is that diamonds are not actually worth that much. They're not. Anyone who tells you otherwise is wrong. Diamonds are not that rare. Diamonds can be crafted. Diamonds are in decent supply. Now, diamonds do have genuine usage outside of being pretty. That's worthy of note. But diamonds are not actually that valuable. Shut up, Henson. The point is, there is an artificial barrier that has been crafted carefully over several years. And this isn't a conspiracy thing. This is all provable fact. There's this whole thing that has basically been trying to make it so that diamonds are, if you go out to buy a diamond ring or a diamond necklace or just a diamond, it costs you a fortune. It shouldn't. It's not actually worth that money, and as Azura points out, you try to sell a used diamond, the price plummets, worse than a car. And actually, to be completely blunt, the automotive industry is another industry like this, but I don't want to get into that. Point being, this is what has become of the movie industry over the last probably about 30 years or so at this point. At least here in the States. I don't know about other countries. And I mention this because they have reached... It is a deliberate point where the amount of money that goes into making a film has just been plummeting, just going up and up and up. Or plummeting, wrong word. Skyrocketing, up and up and up. The cost of making a modern movie is insane when you really sit down and think about it. And that is mostly an artificially padded price. A lot of that money is useless overhead or spending too much for what otherwise could be produced. And I don't even mean like, you can cut corners and get cheap. No, I mean you are actually spending too much. There's a difference between I'm going to cut corners and give you a bucket instead of a toilet, or I'm going to charge you $2,000 for a toilet seat lid. This is a real example, by the way, that I'm using. When you get to the point of metaphorically charging $2,000 for a toilet seat lid, you are wasting money. And that's what the movie industry is doing. And so, yeah, as Max Time points out, this is a deliberate thing. This is not supposition. This is known fact that the Hollywood and the major film industries in general are doing this on purpose to create an artificial barrier to entry to make it so that films still have that kind of only the rich can do this. And once you've reached this point, like basically trying to create an artificial Academy Award kind of a thing. And yeah, I'm just going to say that. The Academy Award the Academy Awards are garbage. I'm sorry. They have been garbage for many years. I'm just gonna say that. Glorified back padding, you know. So now they have to, so now, as Mike Romano points out, and as I was leaning towards, because of this artificial barrier, because of the overextensive price gouging when it comes to movies, we have two consequences. The first is that movies that are being made are starting to get a little bit more formulaic. And I hate saying this. I hate saying this because I fight against this very concept so much. So let me rephrase my statement. Big budget movies, the movie equivalent of a AAA title in video games, big budget movies are getting far more formulaic. How many times have you seen a movie recently where they're doing their scene and they have 3 to 6 cuts, as in editing cuts, in that 5-second sequence? How many movies have you seen that do that recently or in the last several years? How many movies have you seen that are very, very teal and very, very orange in their overall tint, in the backstory, or not the backstory, in the background, or in the characters, or in the outfits they're wearing, or whatever? How many movies have you seen where they use shaky cam? I'm just going to say that one. How many movies have you seen where, even if it's a movie with excellent character and excellent drama or a good presentation or whatever, oh god, yeah, Taken 3 was ridiculous. Cuts for jumping over a fence. There was actually a film, I don't remember what it is, forgive me. There was a film I saw relatively recently on TV. It was my step-parents were watching it. And it wasn't even an action sequence. It was just someone, like a boat was coming up, and it was like 3 cuts to have a boat moored to a dock. Just like a little shanty. Little boat. Like a raft thing, right? Multiple cuts. Cut. My point is, all of these things have become the norm. These things have become the industry standard when it comes to these kind of movies. And the Dingy, thank you, Dingy. And these things have become, like, I'm just naming some specific examples. Shaky cam is worse than Dutch angle. Dutch angle at least just makes me go, whatever. Shaky cam makes me legitimately have headaches or feel nauseous, depending on how bad it is. Born 3 was really, really bad about shaky cam. Pulling this all back to Star Wars, I told you I'd eventually bring this all back to Star Wars. What we have is the second real problem here, and that is that the companies that are dumping a huge amount of money into making these overly, unnecessarily expensive movies are unwilling to let people really try new things and new ideas. And let's make this clear, it's fully understandable why. Because they want something. This is effectively an investment for them. Making a movie and making a AAA video game, these kind of things are the type of things that are investments. And an investment is just a fancier word for gambling. It's true. There's no arguing this. Okay, there is arguing this. In my opinion, there's no arguing this, which I suppose is a self-contradictory statement. And so they want the safest possible bet, right? They want the safest return on investment that is available. So, yeah, so this, again, bringing this back to Star Wars, I legitimately feel, and I hope to God I'm wrong, I really do, but I legitimately feel that what's pushing Kathleen Kennedy is, whether or not she's a horrible person or not, the people who make the money decisions, who are pushing her bosses effectively, and the people who are actually making these decisions are saying Star Wars Episode 8 has to succeed, and therefore it has to follow the formula, or it has to play it safe. One of the two, or both, actually. Both are possible. And I hope to God I'm wrong on this. Now, to make this clear, this is not universal. There are obviously exceptions. In fact, this is why I mentioned earlier, I hate to be the person saying this, because I'm one of those people who champions the idea that there are still exceptions, that there are still great movies that are made that are fantastic. But I have to point out the irony of the fact that Empire Strikes Back and a lot of the whole Star Wars original thing, the original movies, most notably the first two. Return of the Jedi was a little more formulaic, but the first two movies did not follow formula. I know that's a weird thought nowadays, because so much of fiction in general, not just movies, but all medias, have been influenced and changed and become Star Wars-y as a result of Star Wars. It's hard to remember that when Star Wars was made, it was unusual what they were doing with that. That kind of, from a financial perspective, dumping that kind of money into a big budget science fiction picture without certain things being behind it, that was unheard of. Nobody did that. Being willing to dump the kind of money into it, dump the kind of acting into it, dump the kind of writing and the pulling unusual people into it and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the editing of the film. Now, granted, obviously, I'm not saying Star Wars. Let me make this clear. I'm not saying Star Wars, and I'm calling it that because this was before A New Hope was ever a thing. I'm not saying Star Wars was some brand new thing from an artistic perspective. Obviously, it takes so many inspirations from Kurosawa films and other excellent forms of media history. Of course, it did. George Lucas was a gargantuan film geek. He loved film. But getting back to my original point, Star Wars really changed how the film industry worked. It was something new. If you can argue the movie itself, but you cannot argue the financial side of things, because Star Wars changed the film industry. Empire Strikes Back is a lot easier to say that it was an unusual, formula-breaking film, which then established a new formula. That's what usually happens. But I digress. Again, the irony of this just drives me crazy. Anyways, God, I'm only one note into my notes so far. Let's talk about... Well, yeah, exactly, Max time. Nothing new under the sun. God, I don't even know how many times in my life I've said that, ironically. Nothing new under the sun. Let's talk about... What's my timestamp? 42. Let's talk about Star Trek. I mentioned we'd get there. Let's go ahead and talk about it. A lot of my notes today are related topics. Let's talk about Star Trek Discovery, or STD, as you prefer. Okay. I'm going to rant a little bit. Preface. I'm going to rant a little bit here. Sorry. Yeah, Star Trek Discovery. STD. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's trying to be a grittier, edgier Star Trek, so, I mean, let's make that sense. I'm going to keep calling it STD until it proves that it's a good show. And then I will eat my own crow on that one. Because, God almighty, I hope it's a good show. I really do. As of this exact point in time, I have 0% belief that it will be a good show. And I hate to say that, but it is actually at 0%. I have no hope whatsoever that Star Trek Discovery will be a good show. I should clarify that. The first season will not be a good show. I should clarify that. Maybe it'll get better. I don't know. We'll see. God, I hope I'm wrong on this one. This is the second time today I've said that. God, I hope I'm wrong about Star Wars. And God, I hope I'm wrong about Star Trek. So, where to start? First of all, let's talk about allegory, okay? There's a episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, and I don't remember the name of it. It's the terrorist episode. Anybody who remembers the name, feel free to toss it at me. There's this episode, and it's actually a really good episode. It is a very gray-on-gray episode. It highlights the good and bad of both sides of an equation. It talks about the very concept of terrorism. The high ground. Thank you, Lurker. Knew you'd get there. TNG, the high ground. It is, in my opinion, a very good episode. It's not in, like, the top crust, the top 5 or 10 of TNG, but it's pretty high up there. I hold it in high praise. Deep Space Nine did a two-parter. This two-parter Homefront is, I'm sure some of you remember this one. DS9 covered this whole idea of the this was after the Dominion War had started, of the changelings actually being on Earth and having to basically facing the age-old question of security versus freedom. That's the question there that was being covered in the two-parter. And you might be wondering why I'm bringing up both of these episodes. I'm bringing up both of these episodes because they both have one very important thing in common. They were not designed to be allegories. The writers of all three of these episodes, yes, Homefront and Paradise Lost, all three of these episodes sat down and said, this is the type of story I want to tell. And they did, and it was a good episode. Bam! Whoa! They sat down, forgive me for sounding sardonic here, but they sat down to make a good episode, and they made a good episode. Let me use another example here. I want to say it's season 3 of TNG. Oh, shoot. Hang on. It's the one where I'm actually having a hard time even describing it. It's the one where... Oh, hello. Just a second. It's the one where Picard is mistaken for a god. Anyone know that one? I think it's season 3. Hang on just a second. We seem to be doing okay at the moment, comma, but thank you, period. We're probably going to have some power outages over the next couple of days, though, period. I have concerned people. Well, that sounds fun, period. Did you see the picture I sent you, question mark? It was giving me troubles with sending, period. My niece drew a picture of me and her fishing together. It's stick figures, but it's adorable. Who watches The Watchers? Thank you. So. I know, right, China Machine? Who watches The Watchers? So. Getting back to the whole allegory thing. Who Watches the Watchers was written by an author who has admitted that they are very anti-religious, very, and now I want to make this statement clear because I don't mean they're atheist. There's plenty of atheists who are cool people. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with being an atheist. What I am irritated by is when you get on a soapbox. And that's what happened with this author in the episode Who Watches the Watchers. They got up on a soapbox. And they started preaching about how anti-theist, thank you. I knew there was another term for that other than atheist. This is someone who was just like, rah! The dark ages of... Now what's funny is if you sit back and analyze the episode on its own merits, there's some interesting stuff being stated there. But the problem was it was being presented as someone ranting on a soapbox, kind of like I'm doing right now, actually. And I don't like people standing up on soapboxes and preaching. That author sat down to write an allegory. You probably see where I'm going with this. In my experience, in everything I've been going through, hi Pat, in everything I've been going through in my life when it comes to analyzing fiction over the last 20 years, when someone sets out to write an allegory for something, even if it's good, it invariably tends to suffer for the fact that the author is affixing it to that allegory and their personal feelings on the matter. This is just my opinion. But I have seen this several times throughout the course of many things of fiction. Yeah, you know what? FF10 is actually a fantastic example of this. FF10 was not getting up on a soapbox. FF10 was not preaching. FF10 was not trying to establish allegory. I talked about that. Instead, FF10 was looking at issues and looking at concepts and trying to figure out... In fact, if you remember, as I was talking about this when we were going through the lore run, FF10 actually didn't start with the idea of corrupt religion. It started with the idea of non-stop disaster. Like, what if... Like, one of the original ideas was, What if you lived in a place where there was, I hate to, this is topical, what if you lived in a place where there was a hurricane all the time? What if that was just normal? How do you relate to that? The Yevon religion sprang out of that idea of the disaster. You get my idea. You get my idea. So, I think I've gotten across my point about allegories. Now that I've established my point, you know what's funny is I used to suck at debate club back in school. Now that I've established my point, you know what? I got to pull this up. I'm sorry. I got to read this word for word. I wasn't going to, but you really got to understand. I'm just going to quote word for word here. Give me a second here. Shut up, Polar Bear. Nope, pause, stop. I hate auto-running videos, I really do. Word for word. The upcoming CBS All Access drama tells the serialized story of a war between the UFP and the Klingon Empire. The show is set a decade before the 1966's original series, which premiered 51 years ago today, during which the Federation and the Klingons were in a Cold War standoff that reflected the U.S.-Soviet relations. In Discovery, war breaks out, and the Klingons leading the charge have ideological ideas inspired by the 2016 electoral divide. The allegory. This is a quote from. Oh God, I can't find her name. It's one of the showrunners. I can't find her freaking name. It should list it here. Whatever. There's so much freaking ad. God, I hate this page. Anyways, so this is now a word-for-word quote by one of the producers. You ready? Quote. The allegory is that we really started working on the show in earnest around the time the election was happening. Oh, it's Aaron Herbert. There we go. The Klingons are going to help us really look at certain sides of ourselves and our country. Isolationism is a big thing. Racial purity is a big thing. The Klingons are not the enemy, but they do have a different view on things. It raises big questions. Should we let people in? Do we want people to change? There's also the question of just because you reach out your hand to someone, do they take it? Sometimes they don't want to take it. It's been interesting to see how the times have become more of a mirror than we even thought they were going to be. And, yeah. This is word for word from one of the producers. Quote for quote. Hey, Anselmo. And again, this goes back to my point. In my experience, when you sit down and you want to say, I want to write a story about a people who are divided over concepts of what nationality means and where it comes from and what it should be qualified and quantified as. I would argue that's a good story right there. You know, or if you walk into a show and say, man, it's election, right? You know what? That's a good idea. I'm going to write a story of an allegory. And she said it herself, word for word. First sentence was, the allegory is that we really... So, this is, instead of doing that, which arguably might have led to a good idea, is, let's make an allegory for Trump. Okay, I'm exaggerating. But you get my point? Yeah, and again, if I'm being completely fair, there is at least a good idea here. There really is. But I don't think they're going to hit on it. Because as I mentioned earlier, and again, this is why I wanted to preface this with that speech, establishing my viewpoint on allegory versus topic, that Who Watches the Watchers, while not being a great episode and being designed to be an allegory, and that screwed with it, does have good ideas in it. There are good concepts in that episode. There are things they did properly in that episode. So it's not like this is automatically gutter trash because of the fact that they're walking to this. It's that they're stumbling right out of the gate. It's another negative mark on a gargantuan page of negative marks for this frickin' show. Oh, speaking of which, I haven't even reached my actual topic yet, by the way. This is all preface. I mean, this is just something I wanted to bring up mostly as an anecdote. Hang on. I'm sending a picture to Lore Mom here. This is a drawing of me and her going fishing, period. There we go. So, getting to my actual point, now that I've gotten the preface out of the way. I started looking into CBS All Access, guys. How many of you out there, let me do another segue, because I love being some segues. How many of you guys out there dislike it when a game comes out for $60 and then they have microtransactions on top of that? Let's ignore quality. Let's ignore quality for a second. Let's ignore preferences or opinions of the game quality or the microtransaction quality. With just that sentence, with no other information. $60 game, microtransactions, automatic dislike. I know for a fact Pax hates this idea. Just to name one out. He's actually refused to buy games that he likes or feels like he would like because of that. So CBS All Access costs $6. Sorry, $6 a month, or $66 a year. I think I forget the exact number. And has ads. Digest that for a second. No, it has a separate bundle, Anthony. It's like $66 a year or something like that. CBS All Access. CBS's thing. There we go, finally. You know, I'm not even sure I really need to add anything to that. I do have something to add to that. You can pay more for an ads-free service. Which is $10 a month, by the way. Now, Gary points out a valid point. We pay a lot of money for cable, and cable comes with ads. We can also pay more money to avoid those ads by purchasing services or products which will bypass those ads. Yeah, Hulu style, basically. Now, here's the problem. Yeah, and Henson points out a good point. See, the problem is Henson and Gary are both making my point for me. They're just doing it in a slightly different direction. If I come up, well, let me use an allegory, guys. If I came up with an idea to have a digital distribution service for video games, and I'm like, yeah, I'll be able to release my games online, and people could just download them and pay for them just like that. You know, no need to get a hold of a physical copy or wait on shipping or walk into a Best Buy where they can just download. It's a great idea. Oh, there's already a service like that. There's actually several services like that. I've got an idea. Rather then pay their minuscule outsourcing fee. I'm going to spend a ridiculous amount of money setting up my own server farms and my own clusters and my own people to establish those and my own people to maintain those and basically build up my own data center or data centers. And God, I'm not even scratching the surface. The amount of money that goes into this is actually stupid when you think about it. In order to have my own service. And that way, you can buy my games, and just my games, on my own online thing. I'm actually referring to Origin. EA's Origin. I know Origin has gotten better over the years, but it's still a dumb idea to this day. Sorry. And again, this is pretty much exactly what CBS All Access is doing. Because off of the top of your heads, don't Google this. Do me a favor, don't Google this. How many of you guys right now can tell me any other show that isn't Star Trek Discovery that's coming out on CBS All Access? Anything. What the hell is This Is Us? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. Fake humanization, by the way. I'm going to Google it right now because I don't have an answer to my own question. CBS All Access. What do you get? Hang on, hang on. You can watch NFL. First thing they say, it's right at the top. Okay, Star Trek Discovery. Yep, that's great. There's a show called The Good Fight. I have no idea what that is. Big Brother Over the Top, which I think is a spin-off of Big Brother, I'm guessing. And NFL. NFL is not available on mobile phones for CBS All Access. It's a thing. It's right there. And a bunch of other shows that are already on everything else. So that's the exclusive things. That's it. Now I'm staying it that way because you do get other stuff. You do get, what do we got? We got CSI Miami, Big Bang Theory, Madam Secretary, The Latest Survivor, The Good Wife, Blue Bloods, I can't tell what that is, NCIS. All this stuff also comes on it, in the interest of total fairness. But, oh, and Young and the Restless is apparently what that is. But the only things that you get that you don't get elsewhere are The Good Fight, Big Brother Over the Top, and Star Trek Discovery. Anyways. My point is, this is not the first time I've seen a company do this. I feel like I'm repeating myself. This is not the first time I've seen a company say, well, I'm going to take my ball into my treehouse that doesn't exist, and I'm going to build a brand new treehouse rather than use your treehouse. And only the people who come into my treehouse can play with my ball. And I say it that way because it's goddamn childish. There is a difference in saying, I'm going to try to legitimately compete with a major existing thing, like, say, I don't know, what GOG, Good Old Games, has done, and what Origin has done, or what Uplay has done. Also, they're trying to like Gary says, they're trying to basically be a frickin' cable company without any of the benefits of being a frickin' cable company. Speaking of which, I told you my topics all today just kind of blur together. I'm going to go ahead and make another note here. Where's my timestamp? There it is. God, I've already been talking for over an hour. Headache's kind of fading. That's good. Yeah, GOG set out with a different goal. That is very true. But I digress. Let's talk about Disney and Netflix. So, some of you may know that I tend to keep up on economist news because I am an economic geek. And I've actually been getting more of one the older I get. I think I'm getting more boring. Anyways, So, the thing is, for those of you not aware of the surface news, the idea is that Disney might, this is still not 100% confirmed, start pulling everything off Netflix and pushing it onto their own service, which I don't think has a name yet, which is coming out in 2 years now. And, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't even say it's coming out in 2 years. That's too definitive. The current projected timeline for Disney having their own streaming service is 2 years from now. Now, Disney is a fairly large corporation, but Disney is also actually not doing that great financially right now. This gets into the economic side of things. Disney has been suffering from not making as much money every quarter, and this problem has been getting worse for the last about 5 years or so at this point now. And so Disney has been the main reason, the two main reasons why Disney has been losing so much money is that the pillars of Disney's overall financial standing, well, there's several pillars, but the main pillar that I'm talking about for this particular discussion is their film industry. And their film industry, just the film industry in general, is having problems, which I spent like the first 40 minutes talking about. And so Disney films tend to cost as much as most big budget films to produce and aren't really having the kind of returns that they otherwise would be having. Because films in general are kind of sliding a little bit, economically speaking, in terms of income. I'm not saying the film industry is dying. Don't misinterpret my words. Don't shove words into my mouth. But the amount of money that is being made from the film industry is definitively and undeniably going down, and has been going down for the last 10 years or so at this point. So, now, there are some other financial problems that Disney is facing. And when I say financial problems, I have to clarify this, because I know not everyone in the world understands the way the economic world works. So I'm going to try in layman's terms this really quick here. And I'm going to fail at this. To most people, if you say that we're not doing well financially, that probably means we're in the negative. You know, we're in the red. We have active debt, or we are not making as much money as we are spending, or you need to start cutting costs, you know, right? Like if I just say that, if I'm saying not doing well financially, I imagine most people, the gut reaction there is you relate it to something in your real life when you haven't been doing well financially, right? I'm not calling you idiots, by the way. I'm just saying that's probably your gut reaction is, you know, oh, so they're in debt, or they're not making enough money to pay their costs, or, you know, something like that, right? Which is not what's actually meant when a corporation says that. Because corporations, I know I've preached about this so many times, I apologize. I'm just going to mention it briefly. Or yeah, you lost your job or something. From a corporate perspective, corporations are, I'm just going to say this as bluntly as I can, a slave to the very concept of the quarterly return. The fallacy of the quarterly return. Which means, just in brief, again, on the off chance you've never heard me say this before, every quarter, every financial quarter, you need to make more money than you made the last financial quarter. And I've said this before, and I've said this again. This is, in my opinion, the single greatest, this mentality is one of the single biggest contributors to everything wrong with the world right now, and I mean that with total sincerity. I'm going to move off the topic because I've talked about that plenty. But the point here being that Disney is having that problem right now. Their expenses are undeniably going up. The expenses that Disney is pushing is going up, and their income, overall income, is going down. Now, from a corporate perspective, that's not just doing bad financially, that's danger zone doing bad financially. In fact, the actual CEO of Disney has been trying to step down as CEO for the better part of a couple years now. I know that sounds weird.
basically a CEO in general, in common parlance, does not want to stay as CEO any longer than a certain period of time, usually about 5 years. But I know that we all make fun of corporate executives and whatnot, but being a CEO, especially being a good CEO, is actually an insanely stressful job. And CEOs, it's considered common industry practice, and I actually agree with this for once, to cycle out CEOs so you don't get too stuck in a rut. There is also the less positive side of that, which is the golden parachute. Most CEOs want to cycle out in order to get more money, in order to then go become a CEO at another place. It's weird how many career CEOs there are. I digress. So there's a good and a bad side to this. I don't want to slant it either way. Point being, Bob, I can't think of his name. Bob wants out. Can't get out for various binding reasons. Disney, now, can you guess how these two topics tie in together? Because Disney is like, we're going to make our own Netflix. Fine, it's Bobina. I don't care, dude. It is a guy. So I guess I shouldn't call him or her. Now, this is an idea that's been cycling several economic analysts. And I want to stress that because this is not something that has been talked about by the actual corporate executives or by the CEOs or anything like that. But several analysts and several economic people have basically said Disney needs to buy Netflix and be done with it. And I hate myself for saying this, but I actually agree. From a purely financial perspective, if Disney wants to maintain themselves as they are and wants to keep going, they need to just buy Netflix and be done with it. It's going to be about, I forget the number. It's a something billion amount of money. The number's already been floated. We already know what the value is. And then they just need to use Netflix as their digital distribution service and be done with it. It's a Band-Aid. You rip it off, it hurts, but then you're good, right? I guess that's a bad analogy, because usually a Band-Aid means that it's a temporary solution, but this is actually the exact opposite. This is more of a long-term solution. This would solve a lot of Disney's problems with how their income is working right now. Netflix is very, very widespread, and, well, see, here's the thing. As SJ points out, Netflix is also having some financial problems right now. That's actually a more complicated situation that I don't really want to touch on. Because what's happening with Netflix isn't just they're losing money because blah. It's more like they might be losing money in this field because blah, 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 and blah. That's a far more complicated topic, which I'm not going to talk about. But it is worth noting that if Disney did procure Netflix, that would actually, at least for right now, solve Netflix's financial problems. It's actually such an easy solution. I am amazed both companies haven't thought about it already. I mean, think about it. Netflix is basically a household name at this point. It actually has the largest percentage of market share when it comes to digital distribution of television and films in the world right now. That's not a made-up thing. That's not me speculating. That's proven fact as of right now. So, Netflix has widespread distribution. Disney has Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars. I mean, I cannot be the only one who this makes sense to, right? Oh, I guarantee you people have thought about this. In fact, it is worth noting there is a possibility this will still happen. Because the whole making their own Disney thing hasn't actually happened yet. And in order to make this this kind of a purchase would take the better part of a year or so. Probably longer, actually. So, I'm sorry, at a minimum, the better part of a year or so. So it's very feasible that Disney is actually in the process of buying Netflix. And they just haven't talked about it yet for obvious reasons. You talk about purchasing another company, the stock goes all weird, the stock holders get all weird. It makes sense. They shouldn't talk about it until they're more settled. That makes sense. I'm with that. But yeah, honestly, SJ, this is kind of a blockbuster moment here. For those of you not aware, because SJ said it in chat there, Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix once upon a time and decided not to. And some of you probably don't even remember this. Blockbuster actually had, very briefly, for like a year, Blockbuster had their own Netflix service with mailing out DVDs. That bombed horribly. And I think there's, what, one Blockbuster left in the States now, which isn't actually owned by Blockbuster. So, we'll see what happens. I'm really not sure. But let me explain why this matters as a geek. Obviously, I care about financial stuff. Obviously, that's something that's very interesting to me personally. I know only some of you tolerate it when I talk about financial stuff. As a geek, let's explain why this matters. Because the more Disney as an aggregate umbrella is having financial problems, the more that those executives are going to coordinate with each other in such a way that pushes pressure onto the people who make the decisions about things we care about. Things like Star Wars, things like Marvel, and things like Disney. If you happen to like Disney movies or Pixar movies, that will also be affected by this. Cough, cough, Kingdom Hearts, while we're on the subject. Remember, Kingdom Hearts is not actually owned by Square. It is owned by Disney. We're looking at a potential cascade situation here. Because it's actually really stupid when you think about it. For those of you not aware, the whole point of doing umbrella companies and multiple unconnected corporations is so that they aren't attached to each other financially. That's the whole point of that. That is literally the reason that's literally what Google did this year. Splitting into the 3 companies, or 6 companies. Creating new holding corporations to specifically differentiate the separate companies underneath, the corporations underneath them, to separate them financially. Reality has almost never agreed with this, though. In reality, what tends to happen is that umbrella company is doing bad, so companies under it doing bad. I actually have a direct example for this of you, but I can't think of the name of the company. It was the one who owned Blizzard back before WoW came out. They were bankrupt. They were declaring bankruptcy, and in the middle of trying and going through a... I can't think of the name of the court. There's a specific court that handles United States corporate, countrywide bankruptcy clauses for corporate. I can't think of the freaking name of the court. It's like a specific name. Everyone goes through there. Anyways, they were going... No, not Activision. No. Activision was way later. Hey, ANP Network. ANP Network. I can speak. It's also the people who owned Sierra. They owned a couple companies. Vivendi. That's it. Vivendi. Vivendi was an umbrella corporation. The more I say that, the funnier it gets. Was an umbrella corporation that owned Sierra and Blizzard and like a bunch of other companies. I don't even remember the other ones. And Vivendi was in the red. They were actively in the... They weren't doing bad financially. They were self-destructing as a company. And, there were so many levels worse than what Disney's at right now. And on, thanks to the nature of how that should work, that shouldn't have affected Sierra. That shouldn't have affected Blizzard or any of the other companies that it was attached to. But it did. And a lot of policies and a lot of changes were being pushed down politically through, down through the ranks to the executives who were in charge of Blizzard and Sierra, which made them do things for the sake of trying to rip more money out right now to help Vivendi up top. And that's not how that should work. That literally violates the entire purpose behind this. However, that is what happened. It is actually one of the primary reasons why World of Warcraft had so many issues when it first came out, is because Vivendi was pushing down, and so Blizzard was pushing down. Make sense? So, that brings me back to Disney. Yeah, actually a very similar thing to happen to THQ, actually. Actually, one of the biggest reasons for the Blizzard-Activision merger was because of the garbage they went through with Vivendi. I know a lot of people don't like that. Company mergers are a whole other bundle of weird that it's actually really legitimately hard to explain how and why. But all I'm going to say is at the time I was actually happy about the merger because of the fact that it would form a tight financial defense against things like the Vivendi situation happening again. Moving on. Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried about what's going to happen with Disney and their stupidity, and this is just one of several things that's going on that might lead to messes up with, you know, Kingdom Hearts and Star Wars and everything else we care about. So, moving on. I may cut off my other topics at this rate. I've already got a full Loreweek worth of topics here. Like, I was going to briefly talk about Destiny 2, since that's come up. You guys want me to talk about Destiny 2? I'll let you decide. Okay, you want me to talk about Destiny 2? Let me go ahead and make the note here. I wasn't thinking about cutting it out at 119. So Destiny 2 came out. Shut up, Henson. Destiny 2 came out. Yeah, no, I'm not playing Destiny 2. I have zero interest in Destiny 2. I'm not saying it's bad, I just have zero interest in it. So... Destiny 1... is related to this overall topic. Hey, Zunkadek. Because of the fact that they blew way too much money on the wrong things. That's pretty much the main connecting point here, and this also connects to my next point, which I'm going to talk about after this, which is price gouging. Destiny, it is my opinion that I hate to keep talking about finances. It is my opinion that the primary reason that Destiny 1 was not as good as it should have been, nice neutral sentence there, is because of the fact that they blew way too much money in the wrong places. They just flung money at blah. At the ad budget was terrible, but there were several other things that they just blew money on that were not worth what they were getting out of, just like the diamond industry, just like the film industry, you know, again, kind of tying into everything we were talking about earlier. The relevant point here is that I feel like this created a bit of a pendulum effect when it came to Destiny 2. Now, Orange mentioned that Destiny 2 feels like the game they wanted to make the first time, and everything I've seen when it comes to the actual developers and interviews from the developers agrees with this. That they sat down and they said, Destiny 2 is the game that we're having ambulances in. It is the game that we really wanted to make to begin with, and that we really want to shove you know, we really wanted to pour our hearts into a really good story and a really good experience, right? Okay, I'm with that. That makes sense. How many people know about the shaders situation with Destiny 2? Which is just funny. So, shaders is the in-game concept for... You know what? I don't like the color that my blazer is in-game. But I've unlocked a red shader. So I'm going to... Boop, there we go. My blazer is now red. Woo. So that's cool. I'm with that. And that makes perfect sense. And I love cosmetics in a thing. No problem so far. In Destiny 2, they're consumable, which is stupid, and purchasable with real-life money, which I don't need to say anything about. If you don't understand what I mean by consumable, I mean, I want to turn my blazer red. Click, there we go. But now the red is gone. I no longer have the ability to dye something red, because I have used red. Think of it as a literal bucket of paint, rather than a toggle, which is what it was in Destiny 1. Or an unlock is a better way. Unlock is what it was in Destiny 1. So it's like, boop. Gone. So that's stupid. Here's where things get funnier. I'm going to deliberately give you half the information, because I'm trying to make a point here. Then I will give you all the information, okay? Oh yeah, only for one item. That's also relevant. If I wanted to dye my whole outfit red, nope, just the blazer. You can pay for actual gear now with real money in Destiny 2. End sentence. Now I'm going to wait. Now, the reason... Hang on. I'm going somewhere with this. The reason I went ahead and gave half that information first is because I wanted people's gut reaction to that fact. Because I imagine most people, even me, I don't even care about Destiny 2. I had the same gut reaction to that. What? Here's where things get weird. The gear you can buy is not great. In World of Warcraft terms, it's basically a blue. You know, a blue dungeon piece of gear. In STO terms, it's kind of like a purple, you know, for your ship. You can buy not great gear. This is a head scratcher right here. I legitimately do not have an answer to what the hell is going on with this. That's not true. I have one, frankly, wild speculation on what the hell's going on here. So, but I wanted to make that point because most people's gut reaction to paying for in-game advantage is, you know, no, right? Wrong. Unacceptable. You know, Bragwin, I'm just going to quote Bragwin word for word here, just said, screw that with an angry cactuar. No, it's not that cheap. It's like $5 or something like that. Well, I guess I shouldn't say it $5, because as with everything, they use an in-game currency, so they can basically get a few more bits of money than otherwise would. That's a whole other topic I'm not getting into. In-game currency is just a way to try and get more real money out of you than just charging you real money for the product. That's what it is. It's a form of obfuscation of cost. Exactly, okay. Makes sense, right? Hilarious. So yeah, gut reaction is just, ugh, what? No, that's terrible. And obviously, maybe it's like Tigzer said, maybe it's the whole point that you're, you know, trying to get a boost at the start. But here's the real problem with this. You are trading in, hi Juanta, so much consumer trust and consumer, I guess faith is the word I want to use here, in exchange for a very small market of people. And this is, again, going back to real math. There is not a large market of people who buy those starter packs when it comes to video games or MMOs or even mobile games. You know, so a small market in exchange for a massive amount of consumer trust, just for doing something that ridiculous. Here's my wild speculation. I think Activision, or the corporate side of things, said charge for gear. And the people in charge of implementing that said, can do, and made it crap to make it so it would not be pay to win. Because this is not pay to win. Paying to win, to make this statement clear, is when you shove money down in order to get an advantage over people who are not shoving money down. It's a way to artificially create a competitive environment in which the only people who can win are the people who pay real money, right? That's pay to win. This is not that. This is pay to jumpstart, I guess. I don't even know what to call this. This is such a weird thing. Pay to speed up the early game. I don't know. You know? Not really a useful use of your money. That's what it is. Pay to waste your money. There we go. We'll put it that way. So yeah, that is my theory. That is my speculation. I think that this is a way to satisfy the money people while still trying to keep the game balanced and trying to keep pay to win out of it. You know, anybody knows what Pepperidge Farm is? I know this sounds like a tangent, and that's because it is, but bear with me. Pepperidge Farm remembers. There used to be this thing on this thing called TV. You probably don't even know what TV is anymore. On the old TV channels, they had these commercials where, you remember the old days? Pepperidge Farm remembers. So forgive me for sounding like Pepperidge Farm here, but do you remember when people would sell a game, the end. I mean, it's such a simple thing. I even know that it's more complicated than that. I really do. I get it. But you remember when you'd buy a game and it was that you had the game. It was awesome. And expansion packs. You remember when expansions were the normal method of expanding the content of a game? You remember Shadows of Untitled for Neverwinter Nights? Do you remember Brood War for StarCraft? Do you remember Tribunal for Morrowind? Do you remember The Throne of Baal, Baldur's Gate 2? I don't know why I'm going with RPGs, but you get the idea, right? You remember that? Remember that? Now, I told you this all kind of ties in. The harsh reality, the more I've looked into this, the more I've looked into the financial side of video game development, the more I see that the exact same thing that has already happened to the film industry has been actively happening for the last few years to the video game industry. The dividing line between AAA games and everything else is growing. That barrier, that wall between Mexico and, I mean, between between every other type of game, because indie develop, there's more than just indie development. A lot of people tend to forget that. So between everything else and AAA, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's because, okay, that's all truth. Speculation time. I believe it's because they're pulling the same goddamn crap that the movie industry did for the same damn reasons. Trying to make that we're... well, just... you know, trying to build that whole... Damn it, we're talking about STD all over again. It all ties together! Because we've got another situation where it's like... well, you see, no, it's... I'll talk about that, Kay. Don't let me forget, because what you're talking about is actually an unrelated topic. Or I guess a similarly related topic. But no, the point is, it's getting more expensive to make a truly AAA game. It is. It is just getting more and more expensive as each year passes. And that barrier to entry is almost universally artificial. Like, obviously it is more expensive to make a really good game. Duh. I'm not going to argue that. But a lot of that expense, again, is basically being flung out the window on crap. Just like it was in the movie industry, just like with the frickin' diamond industry, right? Tying this all together. And the point is, that barrier to entry is making it so that AAA games are trying to play it safer. I'm sure you've noticed this without me even saying this. I'm sure most of you are just nodding your heads like, yeah, of course AAA games have been playing it safer lately. Duh. Because they want a safe return on investment. And they need more money coming back in from that investment, which means they need to hit a larger market, which explains just about everything that's been happening about AAA games across gaming. You get it? Now, I decided to look up some specific figures here to help out with this idea. Who out there knows what Tides of Numenera is? Yeah, this isn't new. This isn't new. Yeah, Torment. Tides of Numenera, Torment. It's not actually a remake, it's just a new Torment game. I still haven't actually played it myself. I never got around to it. The most I heard complaining about it was that it had too much dialogue, which is one of the weirdest complaints I've ever heard from a Torment game in my life, but whatever. I mention this because the amount of money that was raised for Tides of Numenera was $4.1 million. That's a lot of money, right? This is what I like to call the middle ground when it comes to development. This is something I've just come up with as my own categorization. I don't have a term for it yet. I'll probably come up with a term at some point. Double A, maybe? I don't know. But the point is... I know, right, Henson? But the point is that that's a fairly large amount of money and is actually relatively typical for about a middle ground development company. You know, whatever I'm going to call that. You know, down the middle. These aren't indie developers. You know, I can tell you how much Stardew Valley cost to make. I can tell you how much Undertale cost to make. Those cost basically nothing to make. Because, duh, right? But this is more like, say, Cities Skylines might not be a bad example of a game that kind of hits this middle ground in between indie and AAA. 4.7 million, or excuse me, 4.1 million raised. Now, how many of you heard of this game? In case you can't see it, I don't know how it's turning up on the webcam. This is Horizon Zero Dawn. And my CD's coming out of its thing. There we go. How much do you think that game's budget was? Real question. I haven't played it yet. I'll be playing it for the rumination. Probably next year, actually. Early next year, but still. 25 million? Okay, good guess, good guess. 10 million. 25 million, yep. 30 million, decent guess. $47 million. It's actually the same budget, okay? Or rather, I should say, I only have access to the one figure, which is the combined budget. $47 million to make that game. Now, that does include marketing, which is part of my point. But the point is, and I use this as a specific example because, A, it's recent, to give you an idea of modern perspective on this. I mean, I could point out Modern Warfare 2, which or Grand Theft Auto 5, which are some of the most expensive games ever produced. But this is a game that came out this year, I think, right? Does it say the year on here? It was this year or last year. It's very recent. It doesn't say. Whatever. This game came out recently. And this game should not have cost that much. This game, it's a good game, too. That's the other reason I wanted to use this. That's the second reason. Okay, so it was this year. That's the second reason I wanted to use this as the example. Because it's not like all AAA games are bad. But there's no denying that this game did play it safe in several ways because its budget was higher than it should have been. If you look into the financial side of the creation of this game, you see a lot of people wringing hands about the budget. And about the money that was being spent on it. And about how much it was going to make back. And it came out the same day as Breath of the Wild, which is a really, really stupid idea. Just to be as blunt as I possibly can. But again, a lot of that budget, a lot of that money was being burnt on things that it shouldn't have been. A lot of the engine money went into this, and a lot of the rendering money and a lot of the marketing money. Of the three biggest things that are always mentioned when it comes to interviews with the various companies involved with this, including Sony, obviously, and Gorilla. That's the company. I couldn't even think of the friggin' names. I had to look it up on the friggin' box. Marketing. Huge, huge budget cost. My point here, getting back into this here, my point is that, yes, Fallout Bear. At least in some countries. I don't know if that's true universally. Yeah, so it's not like every AAA movie is bad. And it's not like every AAA game is bad. Witcher 3 was a AAA title. Let's just say that as bluntly as we can. I know a lot of people like to not say that because it adds a stigma to it, but it's true. Witcher 3 was a AAA title. I love Witcher 3. I don't even like the Witcher series, and I frickin' adore Witcher 3, you know? But the point is, a lot of money was being burnt on the development of several of these titles that shouldn't have been, which is contributing to the problem. Because now, other companies who are making games that are... Yeah, Dragon Age Origins, another good example of a AAA title. Now, these people look at these things and they're like, okay, well, I want to make a game that is successful. And admittedly, we've got a little bit of bullet point syndrome coming in here. I need to make that game. I need to make that successful game. Quick, let's... I'm sorry. It's just... This boggles my mind how stupid this is. I've actually seen a meeting. I have actually seen a recording of a meeting. It may have been staged. I'm going to say that with the preface. I don't believe it was staged. I believe it was genuine. It was because it was really, really boring. But it was a bunch of people in suits, you know, real suits, not like my actually comfortable suit here, were people sitting around and sitting, and I'm not going to mention the game they were talking about, but they were sitting down talking about such and such game, and they wanted it to be successful, like another game that had come out recently, a game that was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Right? The first Modern Warfare game. So we need to make a game that is successful like this. And so they sat down, they're like, okay, we need to figure out how to make our game make as much money as Modern Warfare did. That was one of the big key points. They had it on a frickin', what do you call it, when you got the projector screen and all that crap. Here, boom, we need to make as much money as Modern Warfare did. Okay, so let's think about this. And I'm going to skip through a lot of the boring crap, because the synopsis was, let's market more. It's funny to me. Yes, I do wear pants. Although usually I wear shorts, depending on how hot it is. Right now I'm wearing shorts, for example, because it's too warm in here. So, yeah, you can already... There's three things that can be picked apart about that. The first is, we want to make more money, not we want to make a good game. The second, of course, these are the money people, so I suppose that makes sense. Still wrong. It's just understandably wrong. Second, the idea that marketing is the way to make your game make more money. And the third, this is the fun one, is that I went to school for business. I think I've mentioned that a few times. You know, I actually went to college for business. And I mentioned this because I feel like the majority... I think Jim Sterling has actually talked about this very same topic, now that it occurs to me. We know for a fact that several people who are in charge of video game companies are in charge because they're managers, right? Let me explain what I mean by that. They're executives or managers, business leaders, you know, COOs, CEOs, CPOs, that kind of thing. You know, people who have a career in being a manager. Now, if you're going to hire a manager, you want someone who has managerial experience. So you look at the resume and say, aha, this person has been a manager at companies that are not video game companies. Look it up sometime. I'm not going to pull up a whole list right now, but look it up. How many corporate executives and managers at video game development companies are from food industries, or, you know, shipping industries, or tax industries? I know there's one from H&R Block. That was one I remember there. Because they don't care that they're a manager in their field. They have experience as a manager. It just makes sense, right? Now, I know the one for EA is Ventures. I don't know about Activision off the top of my head. So, and yeah, Apple. That was it. Apple and Pepsi. Yeah. Thing is, I've noticed a trend. We're entering the realm of partial speculation here, but some of this is, I mean, this is speculation in the sense that if you shove your hand down and shove it back up and it's wet and you hear a splash, you can speculate that they just shoved their hand into the water. You didn't see it happen, but you're pretty sure, right? That's the level of speculation we're at here, because a lot of these managers and a lot of these executives are approaching things as if this is the 90s, when they started their careers, when they just got out of college for being a manager. A lot of the business practices that are being pushed forward are being pushed by people who are dinosaurs, who are slogging forward in old ways that don't understand how things work now. And in my experience, usually the exceptions are the people who look at it and be like, well, this. You know, you look at most of the successful companies in the last 20 years, and in my opinion, almost every one of them is someone who had managers or executives who either got lucky or looked at a situation and said, oh, the situation has changed, and adapted. Amazon, Netflix, both are good examples of this. I would argue Blizzard, actually, is a good example of something that looked at the situation and adapted based on the changes, you know. CD Projekt Red recognized that it is 2017 and not 1992. So, I mentioned this specifically with regards to the meeting I just mentioned, because back in the 90s, what they were saying was actually a great idea, and I mean that with total sincerity, because the idea behind that is, if I take out the facts of the idea and just give you the skeleton of the idea is let's spend more money now to get a larger market share so we get a longer long-term investment. And that's a good idea. However, when you start tossing the facts back in, let's dump tons of money on ads in order to try and push the marketing side of things in order to make our game successful, this falls apart a little bit. Yeah. I mean... Now, granted, this was back in 2008, I think, something like that. I'd have to think about it. I'm not sure what year this came out, but yeah. Also, I'm just going to say this. Ads are another diamond industry, in general. People charge way too much. It's not just spending too much on marketing. People charge way too much for marketing. My favorite example is bus ads, which are stupid. I mean, it's an extreme example, but it gets across my point rather clearly, I think. For those of you who haven't heard me talk about this, yay, I get to talk about this again. Bus ads are really expensive, especially in a major city. And if you don't know what a bus ad is, congratulations, you've already made my point. But that's when they plaster, a game or a movie or, a book or whatever on the side of a bus. And that bus drives it around for X months or X days. You charge by the day, actually, for that kind of thing. And so, now the people who charge for that ad money charge based on, I know it sounds weird, they charge based on eyeballs. But the numbers they come up with for how many people see that bus ad is ridiculous. Because what they assume is, they even lowball it, which is hysterical. They're like, okay, so this many people are in this area, and this bus is going to be going these routes at these times. So if you have a bus that goes downtown during lunch, for example, those numbers, there's so many more people that are going to see that bus. And so they charge based on the theoretical amount of eyeballs that are on that bus. Now, the funny thing is, that might even legitimately be a thing. There might be that many people that see that bus. I'm not sure, and they're not sure. They're making up numbers because you can't track that kind of a thing. But my point is, how much does that frickin' matter? When was the last time... I have a legitimate question for you guys. When was the last time, if ever, you have seen a bus ad and either retained it or been influenced by it, positively or negatively? Now I gotta answer my own questions. You gotta give me a minute here. The only one I can come up with at all is the GTA 5 thing. You remember that? For those of you not aware, when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, they did bus ads. And I remember looking at those and being like, really? And I retained that, so by my own rules, that qualifies. I did retain that Grand Theft Auto 5 was coming out and saw that on a bus. For a little bit of reference, I drive by a bus about 95% of the time when I do anything. There's a bus stop like right there. Like if I go half a block that way. It's a major bus stop too. So pretty much if I'm going to the grocery store or to get food or to get gas or to get work in my car or to get to the highway, to go anywhere else. So basically if I drive anywhere at all, I'm going by a bus. And I know they have bus ads because every time I glance over them, I laugh a little bit inside. I'm not even kidding. Just I couldn't tell you what any of those ads are. And I'm actually trying to think. I'm legitimately sitting here like, okay, I got nothing. I didn't retain any of them. I retained that they were bus ads and that they amused me. Again, this is an extreme example. That's why I use it, because it is an extreme example. But this is still true across pretty much the gamut of marketing. The amount of money that people charge for adverts is stupid. If you want another extreme example, I'm just going to say the words Super Bowl and then look at you for a minute. I'm not literally going to look at you for a minute. That would be boring. But I think I've made my point without even having to explain that, because everyone knows about this one. The funny thing is, it's actually a two-layer thing now. It's not just how expensive. So, getting time during a Super Bowl ad is expensive. Really, really expensive. But that's just the first expense. That's you could literally you were paying X gabrillion. Let me see what the current numbers are. Hang on. I'm actually curious. Here we go. I know I'd find this because it's a very commonly reported thing. Nope. Okay. So this is this year. So modern figures. It is $5.5 million per 30 seconds. $5.5 million for 30 seconds. That's this year's Super Bowl. Now, obviously, Super Bowl ads are kind of their own little thing, but to make my point 100% clear, I could throw out $5.5 million and then put up a black screen for 30 seconds, and that still cost me $5.5 million. Because you've seen Super Bowl ads, haven't you? Have you seen how much they threw into those? Have you seen how much garbage they throw around? Have you seen how much... I'm saying garbage, I'm sorry, I'm being derisive. What I mean is it's very flashy. You know, they do things that are very expensive to do. Hiring a helicopter to have someone dive into a thing, and or doing special effects with this big, you know, that's expensive. I got one. What's the Mobile Strike? Mobile Strike did that one ad. I don't know if it was on the Super Bowl, but you may have seen the Mobile Strike adverts, you know, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that. So you have to hire Arnold Schwarzenegger. You have to get the people to design the costumes. You have to get the people to actually do the crew work. You have to hire all the people there, do the lighting, sets. Then you have to do the ridiculous amounts of CGI just for base designing the CGI. Then you got to edit the crap out of it and process it so the CGI looks like it's smoothly happening on top of the real people. That is expensive. That might even be more than $5.5 million to do Arnold Schwarzenegger walking up and pushing a button on a phone and having, you know, CGI helicopters fly across a room in front of real people. That's expensive as crap. Now, I don't know the actual cost of that. They aren't required to release those numbers, so I don't know how much I actually spent on that. But you get my point. That's how much money is being blown on marketing. Again, an extreme example, but I think it makes the point quite clearly. Because someone, who is it? Aleph G pointed out earlier, it's not just the Super Bowl. It's not just the Super Bowl. You want an ad on any major... Age of Empires with Kate Upton. I remember that. I remember that because I like Age of Empires. And I was like, oh, dude. What? It was pretty much my reaction to that commercial. Or Age of Fire, excuse me. But, point remaining. You know, pay-per-view events, that's another excellent example of that. I actually saw an ad just yesterday. It was a Bud Light commercial. And so it was, yeah, the Oscars, another good example. It was a Bud Light commercial. Oh, by the way, this is actually relevant to gaming. I swear. We'll get to that in addition to the marketing thing. Don't let me forget. So it was a Bud Light commercial, and I'm just going to run this through you. Okay, it had 6 principal actors. None of the actors said anything, so that does reduce their costs. You don't have to pay SAG for them, but they did have a voice actor in doing two voice actors, 6 physical people. They had, I forget the name of the rig, but it's one of those, it's a pretty standard commercial rig. In other words, not held by a person, held by a device. So it's nice and smooth, right? Okay. And it was set in one of those Vista homes that's over the LA area, which are expensive even just to rent. Now, setting up that kind of a shot probably takes, I'd say, a bare minimum of 5 hours, and that's really lowballing it. Getting the perfect shot, because it was a one thing, no cuts. It was actually a pretty well-produced ad. That's actually why I remember those, and it was yesterday. But, you know, that's probably going to take a few more hours to really get that cut. And then you got to pull everything down. So at an absolute bare minimum, you're hiring this place, this Vista Villa, over at the LA area, which is stupid expensive for a day. And that's, again, really lowballing it. In order to get 6 people, and the camera crew, and the voice actors, and the actual products themselves out there in order to make this ad. And even this ad, which is relatively cheap, this is the whole point I'm trying to make. This is a relatively cheap to make ad by comparison to the frickin' mobile strike ad I mentioned earlier. This ad, I would be astonished if it cost less than $1 million to produce. I imagine it probably cost more around the $2 million range. And that's stupid. Oh yeah, I also didn't mention, you know, editors and music production, all that stuff. There's other additional costs. You get the idea. So even a relatively cheap to produce ad is still going to be something that is flinging money down a drain to promote Bud Light. I mean, someone earlier mentioned Coca-Cola, right? How much money does Coke burn on ads? I mean, it's Coke. You already have a pretty good market saturation, Coke. And I'm sorry, I'm not exactly a fan of beer, so I don't know how well spread Bud Light is, but even as someone who does not drink beer, I know what Bud is. Budweiser. I know what Bud Light is. Why are you blowing $1 million minimum, my estimated numbers, in order to make people know that Bud Light exists? In the States, obviously. What was the thing I said don't let me forget about? Of course, Lord of Morta, that makes perfect sense. Right? Right? I mean, obviously people keep buying Bud Light, and, you know, okay, in all sincerity, I have heard that argument before, from marketing people. I have heard marketing people who flat out say, well, you should keep spending the money you are on marketing because you're still selling units. And that's pretty much their shtick. I've actually talked about this with Gary before with regard to the trailer industry, but I believe it's a related topic. I legitimately believe that a lot of the people who are pushing this marketing crap and the amount of money that's burnt on marketing are doing it so they can keep their jobs. They're trying to perpetuate a false industry, in other words. Or, to bring it back one more time, it's just another diamond industry. No, that was earlier. Look, I already talked about that. That's the AA, AAA thing. Just to talk about, I guess I didn't actually talk about that. The point, Kay, is that what you're talking about is the number of games produced, as opposed to the distance in terms of... Oh, sure you do, Lord of Mordor. All you have to do is show that they are making money. And a lot of these companies are. They may not be making enough money, or they may not be making as much money as they want to. But remember what I mentioned about Disney all the way back at the beginning? Disney is still making money. They are still net profiting. Proof positive. And there are people... Seriously, Dakota? There are people out there, and I know this one for total fact, who will sit down and spend days putting together a presentation that tells you that you're making money. And that's the only information conveyed. For like an hour-and-a-half presentation. I've sat through some of those presentations in my life. as you can see, this number here is going to be this, and this. And as you can see, based on this, here's our figures for the last year. Here's our figures for the previous year. As you can see, total number of sales are up. And here's the cost and expenditures for this quarter. I am an economic geek, and I think this crap is boring. So, people do that, Lord of Mordor. I can guarantee that with 100% accuracy. People sit down and make nice, long, boring things that say, you're making money, therefore, you're doing the right thing, therefore, keep doing it. Anyways, all I was going to say to Kay is that the number of AAA titles is shrinking a little bit, but the barrier of cost between a AAA title and what I'm kind of starting to refer to as a AA title is growing. The difference between that, the difference between 47 million and 4 million is growing, and it has been growing, even accounting for inflation. You know, the funny thing is, so many things from a corporate perspective make sense when you boil them down to the perspective of an individual. I'm serious. Picture this for a moment. Let's say you're a person who's like, oh, and let's be totally fair. Let's say you're a person who's a decent guy, or a girl, whatever you are. Maybe you're a Yoshi. You're a decent Yoshi. Okay? No, decent Yoshi, okay? Yoshi! So Yoshi here, you probably can't even see him. Let me use someone you can actually see. Here, I'm about to parallel a corporate executive with a Goomba. Say you're a Goomba, okay? Let's say you're waddling in here to your corporate meeting. Now, you are a leader of insert company A. It doesn't matter what. It really doesn't. You're a leader of insert company A. So, and you're one of the money people. I use that phrase because the money people refers to a lot of different people in a lot of different positions. CFOs, CEOs, marketing executives, business executives, actual managers. There's a lot, and I do mean a lot, of people who are the money people. And that's why I use that phrase, because it's easier than saying the blah and 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 the blah. So you're a money person. You're one of the people who actually makes real decisions regarding your company, okay? You want to make a good decision. You want to make a decision that's going to help your company. It's going to put out a good product. You're a decent person who's smart. You with me so far? You walk into this meeting, and a bunch of people get in front and start giving their presentations. Now, I'm going to share with you an anecdote before I go forward, because you're probably going to accuse me of being too cynical, and I'm going to defend against that accusation before you even start. Because I used to read Dilbert, and I can't anymore because it was too realistic. And that's not a joke. Moving on. So, all the people get in front of you. You're a money person. They know this. They get in front, they decide to start giving their presentations. You're like, okay, I got this. Okay. 90 minutes later, the first person has finished giving their presentation. It was long, and it was boring, and it was deliberately obfuscated. What do you retain from that? There was real information there. Maybe. There might be. Let's assume for the sake of the debate, there was real information being conveyed. Hey, Goomba. What was that presentation about? Now you're getting uncomfortable. The room's kind of warm. You ever been in a meeting room which is just too hot? I don't mean like sweating. I mean it's just like a little bit uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Start to get like just a little bit itchy. You know what I'm talking about? So it's you're kind of uncomfortable. You're sitting in a chair that isn't comfortable because you're in a meeting room. You're not in your chair, which you bought for your comfort so you can do your job well. No, you're in like one of those stupid plastic chairs or one of those roll around, terrible chairs with no lumbar support. So your back hurts. And your butt's starting to hurt. Your arms are you're starting to move your arms a bit, trying to keep awake here. And it's stuffy. Okay. And you're listening to this 90-minute presentation, which is either deliberately obfuscated or actively fictitious. Now what? Next person goes up. They give their review. Or not the review, excuse me. They give their presentation. Do you see where I'm going with this, by the way? Do you see where I'm going with this kind of thing? Because I've said this before. Or poorly put together. It could just be a bad presentation. That's true. This is what real people, individuals, go through that make decisions on a corporate level. All of that little detail of their irritability and frustration and trying to concentrate. Again, you walked into that meeting, you want to do the right decision. You want to put out a good product. You want to make decent money. You're not greedy. You're just trying to do a good job. But there are obstacles and barriers to you doing a good job. And by the way, all of this is assuming you are that kind of a money person. What if you're a money person who doesn't give a crap? I've been in a meeting once before. This is not a joke. I have been in a meeting before where one of the executives was doing this while the presentation was going on. It was actually a pad, not a phone, but you get the idea. Not paying any attention at all. Because that person doesn't care. And of course, as Tigzar points out, because I don't want to make this too harsh on the presenter, that presenter probably spent quite a bit of time on that presentation. Time which probably could have been better presented on someone else, or something else as far as their job, but they really wanted to put forth a good presentation because this is their job, or their raise, or their performance review, resting on them putting in a good presentation, or good presentations. You see how messed up this is? Now, obviously, this is all theoreticals, because there's a lot of different people can be in these different slots, but we can have a situation where a well-intended, well-meaning money person can listen to a presentation from a well-meaning, intended presenter, and the net result is corporate bullcrap. And that's reality, people. That's at its best, by the way, what I just said. That's at its best. Never mind when you get people involved where the presenter can be terrible, or the presenter is actively trying to lie to you because of either political reasons or financial reasons. Or what about if this person doesn't give a damn, or they've already made their decision, or they're already being bribed, this happens, by someone else, again, either politically or financially, in order to go in this other direction. Now, I do want to have one affix, or suffix, excuse me, to all of this. I want to say that this is corporate America. I don't actually know how corporations function outside of the States. All of my experience, which is extensive at this point with corporate America, is with corporate America. So, maybe this is different in other countries. I don't actually know. But that's how it frickin' is here. And you know what? I could really go off on this, because there's another topic related to this. You might be like, well, why do all this? Well, it's because they're a corporation. Now, you might be like, okay, why be a corporation? Well, because thanks to the way that the tax code is written here in the States, you pretty much have to be a corporation. No, seriously. I once presented something to someone, I'm not going to go into details, about the idea of building a company that was going to do XYZ, and this company was not going to be a corporation. By tax law, it was going to be a sole proprietorship. I was laughed out of the room. Because you don't do that. Because the way we have taxes set up here, and the legality of... I forget what it's actually called. It's basically the responsibility. There's a legal term for this, but the responsibility of the corporation, excuse me, the company, sits on the individual. And that's because the laws regarding the responsibility and regarding those tax codes are wrong. And I'm just going to say that as bluntly as I possibly can. So you have to be a corporation to be functional as a company in America. And if you're a corporation, you have boring meetings between people who don't really know how to properly communicate. And we have the situation we're in right now. Oh, also you have stock, and you have investors. Now, the fun, or you might not have stock. That's true. You might not go public, but you still have investments. You still have people who actually own the company. I can tell you flat out right now, even if you don't actually have stock, even if you don't have stockholders, you still have the quarterly return problem, because the people who still own the company, even if it's one person or three people, still are saying, hey, we demand more money per quarterly return. That's still a thing, even if you're not answering to 500 people or 5,000 people. Good news. Chrono Trigger is an awesome game. That's good news, right? That may sound out of nowhere, but my Chrono Trigger wallpaper is up right now in the rotation. Limited is... Limited's another thing. Let's just put it that way. Limited usually has a little less backlog into it. Or not backlog, that's the wrong word. A little less people with their fingers in the pot. I think that's the best way to put that. I was actually writing a story where there was a certain group that basically formed a company that was a partnership, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're insane!" Related to what I'm talking about right now. And they started releasing their product, and it was really, really cheap compared to the competition. And everyone's like, "Okay, are you just selling at a loss?" And they said, "Well, no, we're only a single company." Huh? And they started talking about this, and this is another thing that some people don't realize. How many people do you think have to get a piece of the pie of the amount of money you spend on buying a car? I think a car is probably one of the best examples of what I'm talking about here. Because the dealership who actually sells you the car, they have to make money. The people who transit the car to and from the dealership, money. The people who actually settle that out at the distribution facility. The people who then do the checks, balances, all the... what's effectively overhead, but still, the kind of thing to make that, everything actually at the menu, and so it's basically a huge... I'm not going to go through the whole chain. I went through the whole chain in the story, but the point is, it's a huge goddamn chain. It is a gargantuan chain of people, and every single one of them needs to make money off of that one sale of you buying that one car. That's how that works. And yeah, Azure is absolutely right. The dealership net doesn't actually make a lot of money on selling cars. I mean, I mentioned this. I had someone talk about this a few years ago. They're like, God, I just want to go into business as a car dealer. I'd make tons of stuff, make tons of money. And I'm like, no, you won't. Well, yeah, but they sell a car for like, $30,000. Uh-huh. How much do you think it cost them? Oh. Yeah. Yeah, no, the chain is quite long, and that's the whole point. So what this company was doing was basically cutting out pretty much everything in the middleman, and it was just manufacturer, and then they sold it from the manufacturer, which cut down costs substantially. And then eventually they were pushed out of business by the actual corporations, and that led to some problems, and then a war started. Nobody cares about that. Point being. How many, Tigzar, how many of you have heard this phrase? My dad owns a dealership. I'm done, guys. I'm out of topics, I think. Let me check my thing. Oh, actually, you know what? I still have a topic. I actually legitimately still have a topic. I'm not going to talk about it. I'll save it for next week. We've already talked for 2 hours. But I apologize for ranting and talking extensively about Star Trek and Star Wars and diamonds and Futurama. Do you really want to hear it? Do you really want to hear it? Okay. It's a short one, I swear. It's a short one. Hang on. I'll add the timestamp. You guys all want me to have shorter videos, then you make me talk for too long. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're watching a show. I don't really have anything to say about a Brizer. That's the problem. But I have, yeah. I want you to imagine that you're watching a TV show or playing a game, or watching a movie, or reading a book, okay? Take your pick. I don't care which one. Just pick one, okay? So here's the story that you're reading, watching, playing. There's a town. I'm not going to use what I was actually using in my head because it's a little bit too topical. But there's a town, and all of a sudden, nearby volcano starts erupting. Holy crap! What are we going to do? And then Superman shows up and stops the volcano from erupting. You know, gets all the magma, gets rid of all the magma, saves all the people, no damage. I don't just mean lives saved, I mean no damage. Best possible outcome. And then the story ends. Now I'm going to stop here. What would your reaction to that be? I kind of actually talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I feel like this is worthy of its own topic. So how was that story? Well, no devastation, obviously, Django. I'm seeing a lot of the same type of responses here, which is exactly what I was expecting. Because that is boring in fiction. I actually legitimately feel like this comes from Greece. Like, the idea of so much of our modern fiction comes from Greece, in my opinion. I know that's not definitively true. But my point about this is that we don't want that in our fiction. Or, if I could say this more bluntly, we don't want good things to happen in our fiction. I'm serious. Think about this from a different perspective. Assume Superman exists in real life. Bear with me. Assume Superman is real, and that volcano actually exploded, and then Superman actually saved it. Does that change your opinion a little bit? Because now, all those people who might have been hurt or killed, and all of their stuff and all their livelihood, you know, the farmland, or, you know, I mean, Pompeii devastation, look it up sometime. All of that was stopped. You could probably already see where I'm going with this. Because now that's, yes! Oh, thank God! That's amazing that that happened. Especially if you knew someone who lived there. Or if you lived there. It would be fantastic, because it was the best possible outcome. No damage, no destruction, no loss of life. Fixed. The situation was fixed. We don't want that in fiction, do we? We want bad things to happen in fiction. We want things to go poorly in fiction. We want things to go very well in real life. And I don't know why, but this dichotomy really fascinates me. Now, obviously, this is not universal. We kind of brought this up yesterday. There are some people who want things to go badly in real life. Those people are bad people. I'm just going to say that as bluntly as I can. And some people can enjoy a story about things working out. You know, there's, of course, the whole idea of the happy ending. But yeah, like crime stories, you know? We were talking about L.A. Noire earlier today, right? L.A. Noire. Good game. Good game. Well presented. Fun. And again, a lot of that stuff was actually based on real life, but if you're playing a game of L.A. Noire, it's like, yeah! But imagine that's happening down the street from you. That's the city you live in real life. It's not going to be a reaction anymore. Is it? I'm not sure either, Django. Again, I know that's debatable. That's just my opinion on the matter. As far as wanting tragedy or wanting something bad to happen, or unpleasant things to happen, or to have tension. This is another big one. Tension and conflict. You know, let's go back to the volcano thing. There's no tension there. Superman, done. Conflict? I mean, no. There's no actual conflict because Superman, done, right? No, a conflict situation would be Superman no longer exists, so now a volcano erupts. Now the story becomes about trying to escape the volcano. I mean, how many movies have we had like this? About a volcano erupts, and the whole movie is just trying to endure it, or escape it? gets the conflict now. Now you have the conflict. Now it's them. It's basically man versus nature at that point, if you boil it down to its base level. You know, we need to try and endure this. We need to try and survive this. Oh, God. But no, Betty. No, God. You know, conflict, tension. All of that is removed if you bring in something that can just... Right? Now, I want to add something. Because a truly good author can write the Superman saves the volcano and make it interesting. A truly good author. There's not a lot of those. There's not a lot of authors at that level of quality. Because that takes very serious, careful calculating and presenting of trying to make it so that the situation has the best possible outcome and is fixed, but is still engaging or interesting. That's a real creative challenge, trying to do that. Which is kind of my point. The fact that it's so difficult to make that story interesting is making my point for me. Now, you might wonder why this came up. There's two reasons it came up. First of all, there's a giant frickin' hurricane that just hit Texas. I have family in Texas, by the way. I don't know how many of you know that. They're okay. Had some issues. They're okay. Bragwin, Texas. You know, issues. Duh. There's a hurricane that is right now, this very second I'm saying this, hitting the Florida coast. Has already hit Cuba, right? There's a third hurricane, which probably won't be a big deal based on all the things. But you get the idea, right? Now, in fiction, this could make for a great story. Oh, God, you know, trying to resolve and deal with the conflict. And it's not just death, right? It's not just personal injury. You go back and your house is destroyed, and oh God, how are we going to deal with that? And trying to help each other out and having human touching moments. That could make a great story, but in real life, it's crap. Because we don't want this in real life. We want... I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, so I will just speak for myself. In real life, I would be fine with Superman swooping in and getting rid of that hurricane. I would. Sold. Because then however many hundreds or thousands or millions of people wouldn't be displaced, wouldn't be price gouged by the airlines, wouldn't be having to abandon their homes and hoping that their homes are still there when they get back and possibly being injured or dying or God knows what else. I would be great with that. But it would make a really boring story. Yeah, no, you're right, Formosan. You're right. You're right. It frustrates me that I have no power to do anything about that hurricane. There's nothing I can do about that. Nothing. I am not even a speck of goddamn dust against that thing. No, I have not, Aleph. Aleph, excuse me. LFG? LFG. Oh my God, your name is LFG. I can't believe I just realized that. So why beat yourself up over it? You know, my sis says the same thing to me. She has the mentality that if I can't do anything about it, then I should not worry about it. I have the exact opposite mentality. I can't do anything about it, and that bothers me. I get it from my grandfather. He had this mindset that if there was something... This is a little more down to earth, but he had this mindset back at the company he worked at, where if there's something wrong with the company and he can't do anything about it, by God, he's going to make it so he can. And he did. He made it happen, by golly. He crawled his way up the ranks at that company. It was actually a Phillips Gas Company. Anybody knows what that is? He worked his way up to the point of being a union rep, for those of you who know what that means. And once he hit that point, he officially basically hit the crux. It was like, boom! He was now at the position where he could fix problems or change problems because he was the frickin' union rep. I don't know if you understand how much political power that position has, right? So I've always kind of adhered more to that mentality. If I can't fix something, then I need to do something about it. I need to work at it. I need to build up to that point, right? But then you look at something like a goddamn hurricane. What do you do about that, right? Of course, you know, that's a whole other topic. I did have one other thing I wanted to mention about this. It actually relates to the Imperium, believe it or not. For those of you, kudos to anybody who actually knows what the Imperium is before I have to explain it. When I originally sat down and wrote... So, okay. Anybody who knows me knows that I... Oh, God. Well, it's like Aleph G, so Aleph G, right? You know what I mean? Nope, not the Imperium of Man. The Imperium is my body of works. It's everything I've ever written in my life. And all of that exists within the same continuity, same setting. And I've been doing a lot of work in the last year, just this last year or so, to really codify it, nail down specifics, like specific dates. I've been working on the language lately, stuff like that. And one of the things that I've started to realize in this last year as I start to solidify it is that the Imperium and the Empire, ironically, were always intended to be separate. So here's the thing. The Empire, capital T, capital E, what the original intent that went into that, you can make fun of me if you want for this. No thousands of years. In fact, I figured out last Thursday, just this last week, that so far there have been 479 years in the Imperium. Yes, I can say that to the year. Anyways, that's the whole of the Imperium storyline, 479 years. Even that might be a little high, honestly, but that gives me some wiggle room. So anyways, getting back to the point, I suppose that's not true. Obviously, there was time before that, but there have been 479 years of things I have written. That's a more accurate statement. Moving on. So when I designed the Empire, capital T, capital E, I was trying to design something that worked. I know that sounds stupid. And again, I was a teenager when I first started designing this thing, but I was really big into history. I was really big into government. I was taking classes about that. You know, just started. We're working towards high school and college, and I was going through and I was trying to design an organization that would actually work. Because at that time, I forget what I'd read, but I'd read something, and I was just reading through it. I was getting really tired of, oh my God, there's this empire that rises and then falls. And there's this empire that rises and then corrupts and falls. And then there's this kingdom that becomes an empire that rises and falls. And I was sick of it. I wanted to make an empire that would work. And that's what the Empire is. It's designed as an organization that endures and continues to be, for lack of a better term, good. Thing is, that's not interesting to write stories about, is it? See how this kind of ties in? So, when I started writing Imperium storylines, more and more the question that just kind of came up was, why doesn't the Empire just intervene to fix this? Why doesn't the Empire just walk in and say, hey, and fix this? And more, as I've started thinking about my individual stories and my individual books and what that are present within the Imperium, I started realizing that there was too many times where what was effectively a plot hole was, why doesn't the Empire just fix this? To continue back to our original parallel, let's say I'm doing a story about people enduring a volcano exploding. Why didn't the Empire just prevent that from happening? And that question's just sitting there. And I've actually seriously been debating completely rewriting the Empire in order to better suit the Imperium, or just diversing the two. Now, I actually have a go-to answer so far. It's because the Empire is not a totalitarian state. They do not actually have the moral right, by their own statements, by their own preference, to walk in and say, I'm not going to force you to be A. That's not my job. Anybody who knows anything about how I've done this could say this is obvious because that's how the Bastion works. Yeah, the Empire could walk into Mass Effect or Dragon Age and just... But that would be wrong, at least according to the tenets of the Empire. So they don't. Instead, they spend time and effort and money and resources and more time and more effort infiltrating to try and fix things from within. Actually, the organization the Empire most resembles is actually a junta, believe it or not, military junta. It's actually my own form of the Prime Directive. The idea that the whole point is to take the hard road, right? So I don't want to do everything for you. That's not going to help you, especially not long term. But I don't want to ignore you, because that's not going to help you, especially long term. It's that middle ground. I know, big surprise. An organization I designed believes in moderation. But that is the idea. The idea is you help without doing too much and without doing too little. And there's no hard line there, because it's case by case. How much help is going to be too much or too little is going to be dependent on the individual circumstances. Right? Zaydenra Shepard was an agent of the Bastion, which is an organization within the Empire. Yeah, you need to think for yourself. That is effectively the mentality of the Empire. That's why I think it would work. I know it is basically snapping a finger and making it happen, but by golly, it's my setting. I can do that. But yeah, the whole idea is that the Empire as a whole is consistent of people who think. And that really is the best way I could summarize that. They think. You know? Oh no, DeNoble, that's awesome. By all means. How did the entire one take the way she ended up? Oh, it's funny you say that. I've realized I need to rewrite some of Mass Effect in order to make it fit the Imperium better with the new timeline. But that's easy. I can do that. What about people who do? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me make this clear. You are right. It is about thinking and it is about doing. That's actually a legitimate mentality, like one of the core pillar stones of the Empire. It's not enough to think about a situation or to care. You know, I could say to you, I wish you well, and then walk away. That doesn't do anything. Right? I mean, it's nice, but what matters is, I wish you well, let me help you. Thinking, action. Internal, external, having both combined in order to try and actually do something about the situation in order to try and help. But it does require thinking, because action without thinking, well, we know exactly what action without thinking is like. We have real life for that. And thinking without action is equally useless. So, thank you for correcting me on that. I should point that out. Well, see, it isn't, though, Blue Elf Alex, because walking in and fixing would mean... Alright, hang on. Imperial fleet shows up, kills the Reapers. Bam, they're gone. Alright, now that that's not a problem, what else we got? Oh, the Krogan genophage? Well, why don't we fix that? Hang on, a little genetic engineering here. It's going to take some effort. I think we can make this work. Okay, we got it working. Now the Krogan are going to have less children, but no stillbirths. But not anything. We got them. Okay, so that's fixed. What else we got? What there's the Geth. Oh, we can. That's easy. Hang on. Let's sit the Geth down. Sit the Quarians down. Look, chill. Okay, hang on, guys. We're cool. Okay. You know, that's walking in and fixing a situation. The Empire, by my own rules, has more than enough personnel, technology, and magic, and magitech, which is actually a separate thing in my setting, to just walk in and do that. Sending someone in to work through the system to help the system fix itself is helping. Make sense? Because Shepard didn't save the Mass Effect setting, really. Shepard helped the people to save the setting. Shepard inspired people. Shepard encouraged people. Shepard led people. But it was the people who fixed Mass Effect, not Shepard. And that's really what the Bastion is all about. It's the exact same thing over in Dragon Age, for example. Yeah, the Warden is the one who defeated the dragon, sure, but that's not what was really done in Dragon Age Origins. It was all the things that needed to fix Ferelden. That was what the Warden did. Or more accurately, that the Warden encouraged them to do themselves. The Luca goers. What the hell, Chiquita? We could be the doers or we could be the goers. Yeah, you know what? I agree. Luke didn't save Star Wars. Luke helped Star Wars. I'll actually agree with that one. And then Starboy was like, no. You're special. You. It's actually funny you mentioned that, Foremost, and this really came to me when I started writing the origins of the Empire. I've always known the Empire didn't start as the Empire. That's something that came later during the Hatred debacle. And so I was writing about the Concordat, which is what I call it, the Concordat of Sentient Life, which is what the organization called itself early on. And its rise up, and basically, I'm not going to tell you all the story right now, I don't want to bore you with that, but the thing of, okay, so humans go out into space and we meet aliens, and that's the Vulcan moment. It's like, oh my god, you're peaceful and you like cooperating with us, and so there's this unparalleled golden age of knowledge and technology, and then they meet a second alien race, yes, and they're not peaceful and they go to war with us the moment they see us. Oh crap, oh god, oh god, oh god. And so basically the story of the Concordat leading to the Hatred debacle is basically the story of them constantly screwing up as they whoop, nope, that didn't work. Nope, that didn't work. Nope, that didn't work. Nope, that didn't work. Until finally, the thing that ends up working is the foundation of the Empire, and even that still has some issues down the line, just not as big, not as long-term issues. All of that build-up, though, is also one of the reasons why the Empire has such an extremely strong hands-off policy, unless invited. In fact, it's one of the things that's going to affect Primus so much, because Primus, for those of you who aware or care, is now open to the galaxy as a whole, and as such, the Empire has access to it, and Primus isn't unified. Primus isn't unified, so it's like, well, you know, that you can see how that's a politically sticky situation, because the Empire can't support Alluvia, right? They can't support the Dominion. They can't support the dragons, because the Empire basically making one of those, like, it would be kind of like if, well, let's use a real-life parallel. It would be like if the United Federation of Planets, which somehow has never been to Earth, shows up at our doorstep and allies with France. And France becomes a part of the UFP. Not the rest of Earth. Just France. I mean, can't you see why that's a problem on every level? So, the Empire's like, okay, when you figure this out, let us know. Walks away. It's kind of what happens. It leads to the new campaign, which I'm still setting up some of the details of. Yes, just France. France has access to replicators and transporters and holodecks and amazing medical technology and photon torpedoes and phasers. Just France, nowhere else. Because they're a member state. Yeah, I remember that one, Mike Romano. The super paranoid people and the other people who aren't with them. I can't remember the... It's the one with... It was mostly a Crusher, Beverly, and Picard episode. If I'm not mistaken. Oh, there was also First Contact. I forgot about that one. That's another one that deals with that issue. Also, a Primus XCOM game would be awesome. Of Gantz? What's Gantz game? Yeah, exactly, Takoida. And what's worse is that war... I mean, France would win that war, right? Which just makes it really bad. Worse, let's say France loses that war. So now, I mean, remember, France is a member state, which means if you declare war on France, you declare war on the United Federation of Planets. Now, you got a problem. Both sides have a problem. Because the UFP is looking down like, well, okay. And the people on Earth are like, well, we're screwed. You know? You get my point? So that's kind of what I've been doing recently. Attached, that's it. I knew it was a season 7 episode. That's what I've been thinking about with regards to the Primus thing. I don't know why we diverged onto this. I'm going to go ahead and chop this off now. Well, of course, the Federation wouldn't do that in the first place. It's a bad example, but insert powerful member state federation that has high technology, you know, that isn't the Federation. I was just going with something that everybody knew. Everyone knows what the UFP is, right? Is that an anime? Okay. I mean, let's be honest. I've played EU4. I know what the Blue Blob would do if they suddenly had the Prussian Space Marines. Anyways, I'm going to go and chop this off and take a brief lunch break. And then I'm going to try and finish frickin' XCOM today. I really, really would like to finish XCOM today because I have other things to work on. Brief question while I've got you all here. How many people would be interested in a stream of Dishonored 2's new DLC that's coming out? Like in 4 days or something like that. It's coming up pretty soon. Well, when I finish XCOM, one way or another, it's happening. It's just, yeah. Anyways, while people answer that, and you can answer this on YouTube as well, I'm going to chop off the local recording finally.